News Talk Sports 94.9 WSJM. Dave Wolf, Brett Witkowski, wrapping up things from Husky Stadium in Portage, where Portage Northern beat St. Joe 42-36. And not your conventional St. Joe Portage Northern game, St. 42-36. I mean, we've had games where we've had passing the ball all over the field, teams combining for 1,100 yards passing. This was not that. Portage Northern came out and ran a single wing offense. And quite frankly, St. Joe had a lot of trouble stopping it.
They did. I mean, the first half, both offensively and defensively for the Bears, probably overall the worst half, I think, of the season. They had 67 yards of offense. Dixon, who's averaging well over 100 yards of offense, and minus 2 yards of offense. And, Portage Northern, which is traditionally thrown the ball 10, 15, 20 times, only threw the ball one time the entire ball game, and that pass wasn't too hot.
Well, technically twice. One was a 2-point conversion, so it doesn't really count. So
Right.
technically 2 passes and one for 2. But St. Joe, I think their offensive line was not able to handle the pressure up front from Portage Northern's D from the first half of the game.
Well, and late St. Joe made a big adjustment offensively at halftime. They went back to 2 tight end formation, just went right at Portage Northern. Only 1 wide out, whereas before they were having 2 or 3 wide outs. And I think Portage Northern defensively was exposing the numbers, which meant they had more guys that could rush, and St. Joe had blockers. Leclerc got beat up pretty good in the first half on quite a few pass plays. But in the second half, St. Joe got it going. I mean, they ended up outgaining the Huskies 399 yards to 373, and then 25 first downs compared to Portage Northern's 16. I mean, the only stat that really matters is the scoreboard.
And I know it was 7-7 at the half for first downs.
Correct. The thing I like about what I saw from St. Joe is they didn't quit. Really, if you think about it, what's the difference between the first half and the second half really was the mental side of it for St. Joe. And that, that's something that's not always talked about a lot in high school or college sports and pros. But it's the mental side. How do you handle adversity? Most people can handle success. Most people can. But it's how do you handle adversity? How do you handle when you're struggling? And really it comes down to, you look in the mirror. It's nobody else's fault. What do I have to do better to make my team better? And if everybody's moving in that same direction, you have that. And I thought St. Joe, especially on the offensive side, played as good as offensive half against a very good Portage Northern team. I mean, their only loss is at Orchard Lake St. Mary, which is a state power on the east side of the state. They've been averaging 50 points since then for the most part on the season, and have a all-American, all-state offensive tackle who's committed to go to Notre Dame. He did a good job pulling out. He was the man-child blocking out there. I think defensively St. Joe had a lot of missed tackles.
A lot of arm tackles.
A lot of arm. But, as I was telling Joel during the game, that's kind of the difference between, say, Division 3, 2, and 1, and maybe Division 7, 8, or 6, 7, and 8. You have the athletes that can avoid the arm tackles.
Yeah.
There were quite a few what I would call weight room plays where Portage Northern got the extra yards because of the weight room. Ortiz had a great night for the Huskies, 211 yards and 19 carries and 3 touchdowns. He was tough to bring down.
Thing I noticed about St. Joe in the second half, Ish Dixon at quarterback.
Yeah, they put him back there. A couple plays. One was a toss then to Leclerc as he swept through and made the pass. And then the other one was the exact same play. And I think what they were hoping to do is, as Leclerc got the ball and ran what was supposed to be a jet sweep on paper, he would pass it back to Dixon. But Portage Northern snuffed that out pretty good. But I like the fight in the Bears. I mean, I really do. I mean, this could have been a really quick second half.
3 onside kicks, came up with 1, nearly came up with the other 2.
Yeah, exactly. Both of them were fumbled by Portage Northern. The only reason they kept them, they went out of bounds. And the success rate on onside kick, I think I read, is 6%. And St. Joe almost had 3 of them. I mean, can you imagine if they'd have got that one and went down and tied the game and took the lead? There's a couple things I didn't like out there that St. Joe, the one drive, and we were talking about, even the Portage Northern people were talking about it. St. Joe had 3 first downs. Next, it ended up being the third from last drive of the ball game. Never did the clock stop on any of those first downs, which cost St. Joe at least 30 seconds on the clock.
Also,
and I can say that because I'm a referee. It's a little bit different.
There was a situation too after a Dixon touchdown with 1:18 left. The clock ran for 9 seconds.
Yeah, they did put it back on. They caught that part.
St. Joe drops to 3-3. They go back home to face Mattawan next week. Mattawan coming away with a win over Lakeshore tonight. What do we expect the Bears to do next week? Because there's a little payback on the line for St. Joe against Mattawan for last year.
Well, if I'm St. Joe, I'm going 2 tight ends because it proved that they can move the ball with that. And then, if you do that and get some stops, St. Joe should make the playoffs. But, Mattawan's a better team than last year. Battle Creek Central definitely is the better. They might be the most improved team in the conference. They most likely will be 4-2 at the end of tonight. Then you got Portage Central, which, I don't have their score for tonight, but
they were up big on Kalamazoo Central.
They only given up 3 points the entire season. I mean, I've never seen a SMAC team shut out their first 4 opponents in any sport.
Yeah.
And so, it's not a give me. The conference, which I thought may not be that strong, ended up, I think, being pretty decent. And it's a conference where, especially the West Division, you cannot take anybody for granted.
I think, the West continues to dominate the East.
They do.
So, I mean, there's one thing. The West is always a battle every week. And so, and St. Joe just found out tonight. St. Joe falls to 3-3. They fall to 1-1 in SMAC West play. They return home to Steve Upton Field at Dickinson Stadium next week to host the Mattawan Wildcats. We'll be on the air at 6:30. Kickoff is at 7 o'clock on News Talk Sports 94.9 WSJM. For Joel Cordes, who's packed up waiting for Brett to leave, and Brett Witkowski, I'm Dave Wolf, WSJM Sports.